Hola, Laura Davalo here after a long Christmas vacation that I spent in my native Finland. My fingers were itching for some action, so I'm very happy to be back to share an interactive card which has nothing to do with snow and the cold. Quite the opposite. It features stamps from the adorable Let's Stick Together set by Bertie Brown, and for the mechanism I used the versatile Twist and Turn interactive Die-namics. As you can see, when we pull the tab, a bunch of the cactuses move, and if we made a larger card we could add even more moving elements. But let's focus on this specific card and start with the stamping. I usually prefer to stamp and then die cut, but this time I tried a method that I saw at the My Favorite Things June retreat last year. I snipped off the flower pots and kept the rest of the dies clustered together while running them through my die cutting machine with some Copic friendly cardstock. I started with the Mexican cactus image and stamped it on a piece of scratch paper. Next I centered the negative piece of die cut cardstock around it, kept it put with 2 magnetic bars, added some double-sided tape to the back of the die cut, and inserted it in its place, before stamping the image for a second and third time. This method is especially useful when mass-producing cards. Although it's a little more time-consuming, to me it's worth it. What do you think? As always, when creating interactive cards, I like to stack the elements of the mechanism to make them extra sturdy. So I die cut all of the pieces from the Twist and Turn set twice out of Kraft cardstock and layered them with liquid adhesive. I often get asked about the brads that I use. I like those that have small, flat heads to avoid adding extra bulk to my cards. Tim Holtz has some mini brads, also Art Impressions, or Artemio here in Europe, as long as their diameter is less than 3/16 of an inch or 5 millimeters, so that they can fit through these washers or donut pieces, we're good to go. The assembly of this mechanism is really easy, and you've probably seen me do it before. We just need to remember to put the linkage pieces with the 3 holes opposite from each other. Magnets can be placed on either of the horizontal bars as long as these are secured on top of the 2 vertical bars, but we'll see that later on. Here are all of the elements that we'll need: a 5 3/8 of an inch wide Kraft colored panel for the slope, a light blue panel measuring 5 3/8 by 4 1/8 of an inch for the sky, and a white card base which is 5 5/8 wide by 8 3/4. You can see all of these measurements in the description box as well, so there's no need to take notes. Now for the placement of the mechanism. In order to center it, I like to tilt it to the right. An A2 panel is quite small, so we need to make the most of it and push the mechanism as far down as possible, leaving a little strip for the foam tape. If we're using a thinner type of foam tape like this 3M tape by Scotch, we need to layer it. Let's look at different ways of using this mechanism. We could adhere a group of images to the upper horizontal bar, or we could just use the rotating brads, which are the ones attaching the mechanism to the panel, to make 2 elements rotate counterclockwise. In that case, we would need to die cut 2 holes in our slope panel. We could also get rid of the upper bar completely and adhere 2 of the characters to the vertical bars. Their movement would be more like a swaying from side to side. Once we've decided what we're going to do, we can grab a pencil and mark the spots that need to be pierced. We can use either the included die, a hole punch, or a piercing tool for this. I've linked the mechanism to the panel with 2 brads, and here I'm adding a couple of stops so that the pull tab doesn't move too far either way. I'm still trying out different placements for the elements, and I've decided, since there isn't a whole lot of room, that I'm not gonna add a second cactus on the rotating brad to the right. It would be way too crowded. I also noticed that we need to limit the movement of the pull tab a little bit more. Once everything is planned, we can go ahead and trim that slope panel. It has to be tall enough to hide the mechanism without limiting the movement of it. Now we need to die cut a hole in it for the little rotating cactus. If we rub a finger on top of the left brad, we can leave a mark on the paper and use that mark to adhere the little circle die to the panel with some tape before running it through our die cutting machine. After that, we can create the sand effect with some MFT Kraft and milk chocolate premium dye inks. First by ink blending and then by splattering them all over the panel. And the last touch is added with Copic Markers. By the way, if you want to know what colors I used for the rest of the card, you'll find a complete list in the description box below. I stacked 4 of the donut pieces and now I am adhering them to the rotating brad with some liquid glue. And we're almost finished. I'm skipping ahead a little because I had already adhered the sand panel to the sky panel and both of them to the card base when I decided that I wanted the heart-shaped cactus to slide with the pull tab thanks to a little magnetic snap by Basic Gray. So I carefully peeled off the panel, added double-sided tape to the messed up foam tape, and here I'm adhering one of the magnetic pieces to the pull tab. After attaching the sand panel once again, remember that we need 2 layers of foam tape for this. We can test the mechanism and let the second magnetic piece snap into place, peel off the backing and adhere the heart cactus to it. Next up, the cute baby cactus. I'm adding a thin foam square to the donut piece to elevate it a little bit more. I heat embossed the sentiment on a banner die cut out of heavyweight vellum with one of the dies from the Starburst sentiment strips Die-namics. Only 1 cactus to go and we're done. Let's see the completed card in action once more before I say goodbye. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions or comments for me, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching and until next time. Hasta la próxima.